when you're looking at a new claim, okay, um, you're looking at the reporting and all that stuff. But what do you do when it comes to that?
I mean, generally speaking, it's not the first thing that I look at. The only time I'm looking at whether or not we should be denying a medical bill in the first 90 days is really if there's excessive and unreasonable care. So I'm looking for that guy who had the slip and fall and he starts treating for his shoulder. That's something I'm going to look more into. Do we need to see if there is a panel list? Do we need to see if they got that? Generally speaking, Joe Schmo, who, they went to Concentra and then they said they went to like a walk-in clinic at an orthopedics office. And that injury seems like it could have come from what he's saying. I'm not going to go and nitpick that bill. It's $150. In the grand scheme of things, that is not what's going to affect my case. It's the outcome of going to that orthopedic clinic that's going to impact my case.
Tom, talk about the the ebbs and flows of a workers' compensation case in regards to treatment and staying communicative and all and somebody what are the right what's the right path when it comes, and at what point we only have a couple minutes left, when somebody seems to be chronically injured, when does a settlement when does that conversation come in?
So I would say the timeline for medical treatment is highly dependent on what the injury is. In sort of what we would call the standard case, I mean, every case is a little bit different, but you're going to have somebody that has an injury that is more than a sprain, right? But probably less than something that's catastrophic. We expect them to go back to work. Maybe they need a small procedure. Maybe it's a surgery. Maybe it's injections. That's usually what we're seeing. In those cases, they're going to go to a doctor, they're going to get treatment, and then at some point, they're either going to return to work or the case is likely to resolve. Most cases don't go to trial in this day and age. We do try about maybe 3% of the cases that come through the office, but most of the cases are going to settle, or the person's going to go back to work. And the comp will just pay them for the time they were out, take care of the medical bills, and the claim closes. From the insurer perspective, that's what they would like, right? In every case, they just do what they have to do, and then they go back to work. But in many cases, they aren't able to go back to work, and that's when the case is going to settle.
Yeah, and from your side of the table, Kaleigh, when do you start to see, okay, maybe things aren't going to get better with this individual, or and when are those talks? When are they open?
I'm looking, so it's a balance. I'm looking at what the potential exposure is, and I am looking for the point where settlement is going to cost less than the potential exposure of a case. So I'm looking at somebody who has plateaued in treatment. They might not be maximum medical improvement, but it's pretty clear that there isn't going to be a whole lot more that's going to make them better. And then I'm looking at how much are their medical expenses and wage payments going to cost us into the future if we were to do a 500-week cap. And is settlement going to potentially cost less than that?
And Tom, when you're in that process, okay, you're representing your client, obviously, and how do you evaluate something? So I imagine if there's a 25-year-old kid.
I mean, we're looking at it the same way Kaleigh's looking at it, to be honest with you. These cases are much easier to evaluate than, say, a personal injury case where you're trying to put numbers on pain and suffering or anguish. Like you imagine, somebody's kid dies and you file a lawsuit. Like, how do you put a number on that?
No, you can't.
In workers' comp, there's a formula, right? We know how much their medical bills are. We're receiving those bills. We know how much those wage payments are supposed to be because they're getting them every 2 weeks. We can project that out, whether they're going to be under the cap for the 500-week partial, because workers' comp benefits are capped for most people at 500 weeks.
If I'm lucky.
Right. If you're lucky. But it's very rare because we have impairment rating evaluations that essentially will turn someone from totally disabled to partially disabled automatically, essentially, depending on when they do the exam.
So,
but we look at the same metrics that the defense.
And I'm just going to jump in and say, I mean, honestly, I think if you gave us a comprehensive fact pattern and put us in two separate rooms, our ranges for settlement are going to overlap.